the dread of standardized testing. Now, everyone's probably been on both sides of the standardized testing debate by now, and personally, they're my death knell, reoccurring evil in the industry that I keep bumping into. So I wonder, is test taking a more valuable skill than a well-rounded employee, or is the hype of a good score just another false flag? So standardized testing for developer placement or ranking is where I have a problem. My name is Mark. I'm a full-stack developer since about 2003. I have over a decade before that of design, digital work, and other stuff. And right now I focus on Python, Django, business logic, and APIs. So historically, in school, I was at best a B student and generally a C student. I barely graduated from high school and college. My SAT, ACT, and other scores were not good. And I know I'm not alone with that. In the social worlds, I was popular, considered smart, fit in well with both jock and intellectual circles, but academically, my attitude was one of a low-paid employee who really disliked the boss. And it was clear to me that academic life was a poor primer for the real business world. My always having a job and frequent promotions, reoccurring leadership roles, really seemed to spit in the face of my testing scores. So here we are, a few decades later, and I've worked professionally in 3 different fields, including my current one of software engineering. Like many others, anything with a payment or a check at the end as a reward, I take pretty seriously, and money is indeed a big motivator for all of us. So back to software. Like many of my contemporaries, I'm self-taught. My degree is actually in linguistic, and it's not the expected mathematical foundation that is considered the norm for software development. Any programmer knows that math is indeed a foundation for software, and I get that, and I respect it very much. But some of us really stress over standardized tests because they're rooted in some of these principles that we don't have background or strengths in, and I don't feel that disqualifies us from being a good programmer. It just says we're a bad test taker. Devs often approach problems as a communication issue where mathematical principles are part of the work, but really software is connecting human needs to machine instructions, and these instructions are a language, and it takes years to gain fluency. But interestingly enough, mathematics and linguistics do cross over in the field of logic, and this is where my inherent strength lies. I know many other devs who have success, and it is a product of logical methodologies. So, a lot of people have issues with standardized testing. Here's one of them. The feeling of the threat by the narrow scope of these assessments can be really soul-crushing. I feel that every time. Companies, people, and organizations often get lured into a TopTal or similar elite placement stigma, and I tried TopTal. I had a really bad experience, and it's one that I wish to never repeat, and I don't think I'm alone. Now, I'm not casting any ill upon TopTal. It is its thing, and I get it. It's just not really a compatible formula for me and how I work, and the standardized testing is actually where I fail. So these types of tests are frustrating, and in them you often have a persistent sense of fluster and being rushed, and not knowing a silly little trick to a problem is painful, especially for a software developer. And almost every one of these tests is a trick or a catch or an odd little thing. And, I've spent a long time talking and writing about FizzBuzz type tests, and they're kind of hysterical once you understand them. But that's not where I focus my work. So is a low testing score an indicator of being a bad programmer? Should I just give up for not being in some arbitrary top 5%? Should anybody care? I mean, these are really big questions. The biggest question for me personally is, why do I let this bug me so much? Now, when we consider many greats throughout history, a lot of them were not A students. And greatness often spawns from nonconformist personalities or people living on the edge, possibly a product of struggle or angst. And quite often these people were outcasts for part or all of their life. And I don't need to go through these people. I'm sure a few pop into mind. And I also don't have any need to go over examples to the contrary. The point is, book smart and street smart types should coexist in every company. And that is diversity and experience. And I really appreciate that. And I just happen to be one of the two. Now, generally, I do opt in for street smart over book smart, but I have an interesting reason. The way I see it, street smart is a product of taking an opportunity as it becomes available. This street smart is a product of real life lessons and something you can't necessarily get from a classroom. While book smart, by contrast, can often be attained at any time. You can take the class, read the book, get the certification, invest in the knowledge, and those options are not really available for a street or on-the-job type of opportunity. So my feelings of inadequacy or imposter syndrome in a very technical field like software are indeed valid, and I am not alone, and I've had this conversation with other devs, and it's not necessarily out as much as I wish it was, but we're breaking through. So a lot of those feelings, those negative feelings, are underscored by my shit test-taking abilities. I'm often placed in a quantitative pool where my digits are not shiny. But an autodidactic, self-taught, or serial learner can generally run circles around those who excel at testing alone. So I draw inspiration from other strengths that help balance out the equation. I take experience over a honed test-taking aptitude, and I've never really had that. This leads to leadership and accountability, potential for learning, quick thinking, and the ability to be an asset for a company are things that are not recognized in tests, and they will not necessarily ever be discovered. So a good test taker, by comparison, may have a narrow vision once the playing field shifts or innovation is required. And innovation and new ways of thinking about a problem are key components to success in business. So I test bad, and I don't think that's ever going to change. I am choosing not to let a minor shortcoming define me in a highly competitive male-dominated field, such as software. A company that's looking for pedigree or some numerical justification for a hire is probably going to pass on me. But at the same time, I've never enjoyed working on projects or on a task with people who subscribe to these type of vision. I am a creative force. I question things, seek alternative, and maintain fundamentally a mental logbook of successes, failures, and alternate ideas to help promote success inside product advancement for any company or project. So I read a lot of books, usually on software. I practice my trade more than any other activity. And in a somewhat ironic twist, my work feels more academic as I settle into what I actually represent in my field. It's less of a task, and it's more of a research, and it's more empirical and scientific. And I find that really entertaining and almost uplifting, because as a shit test taker, I find my work is getting more detailed every year and better and more textbook and academic. And I take pride in that work. My name's Mark. I hope you enjoyed this talk. I have a lot more coming, and I have a lot of time spent in software development. And I'm trying to crack open some of the ideas that people aren't talking about, some of the cultural ideas that are out there. So if you have any questions or comments, please throw them in wherever you might be watching this, and I'll do my best to get back to you as fast as possible. Until next time, thanks.